If you're into cars at all, or have been in conversations with people who are into cars, I'm sure you've heard the claim that there's nothing better than shifting your own gears in a manual transmission. And of course, there are people on the other side of the spectrum who believe that the automatic transmission is the best. But today I'm gonna go ahead and present why I believe that the manual transmission is superior. It's no secret that most of the US population is driving around in a car with an automatic transmission. In fact, according to CNBC, only about 13% of cars sold in the US come with manual transmissions. With that statistic alone, people would tend to think that therefore the automatic transmission is a superior transmission, but that would be incredibly naive. That's because the manual transmission has many characteristics and features that set it apart from the automatic. So let's dive into it. Alright, first things first. If you don't already have a car, you have to buy one, of course. And for those people who are trying to save the most amount of money possible, you can do that with the manual transmission. According to 20somethingfinance.com, a manual transmission can help reduce a car's upfront MSRP by several hundred to several $1,000s. Another great characteristic of the manual transmission is that they're much easier to maintain than their automatic counterparts. This is because they're much more simpler mechanically. As implied by the name, manual transmissions are manual, which means there's no electronics embedded in the transmission. In layman terms, it's simply two shafts with spinning gears that interlock with one another, connected to the engine by a spring and a clutch mechanism that is operated by the driver. On the other hand, automatic transmissions have lions and tigers and bears. Wires, sensors, torque converters, hydraulic actuators, all just to shift gears. If one of those components breaks, it's not really a transmission anymore, is it? Now, this is when advocates of the automatic transmission will say that manual transmissions have clutches that can wear out and fail. And yes, this is not an ideal thing to happen, but when most cars with manual transmissions are designed, they're engineered to easily replace the clutch in those scenarios. Now, let's move on to the biggest negative and most controversial aspect of the manual transmission: convenience. This is a hard pill to swallow for most gearheads, but it's true that the automatic transmission is overall an easier transmission to operate. All you do is put your foot on the gas and it goes. However, believe it or not, I came up with a counter argument for this as well that makes it look pretty bad for the automatic transmission. Okay, so let's imagine a world where only automatic transmissions existed. Since the automatic transmission is so easy to operate, just about anybody can get into a car and go. This means people can pass the DMV driving test without knowing how to safely operate and drive a vehicle. This is a huge safety concern because there would be unexperienced drivers on the road. This also makes automatic cars way easier to steal because everyone can drive them. So you can just open the car, turn it on, and leave, if you know how to hotwire, of course. Now let's imagine that same world with only manual transmissions. This will essentially force people to learn how to drive a manual transmission safely because you can't pass a DMV test if you can't drive it. This would also mean that licensed drivers on the road would be overall way more alert because driving a manual transmission is inherently more engaging. Manual transmissions force the driver to be much more alert because they need to be able to look ahead down the road and predict any potential hazards that they will need to slow down for. This is because in order to slow down safely in a manual transmission, you need to be able to downshift or shift it into neutral to avoid stalling the engine. Also, having to constantly shift those gears will keep that naughty right hand busy and keep you away from using your phone to text and drive. Driving a manual transmission is like cooking with fresh ingredients at home. And driving an automatic is like throwing frozen food into the microwave. Sure, they both feed you, but cooking it yourself is more rewarding because you know that you created all the flavors yourself. Now, all that just to say, the transmission that you choose to drive is just a matter of personal preference. But remember, don't knock it till you try it.